Stop for a moment. Look at the world around you. Really look at it. You are standing in the wreckage of a crime scene. But the crime happened so long ago and was executed with such precision that you have been trained to call it civilization. You have been raised on a diet of carefully curated myths. When you close your eyes and think of the words British Empire, what do you see? I know what they taught you to see. You see the maps in your history textbooks, vast swaths of the globe painted in that distinctive imperial pink. You see the disciplined lines of redcoats standing stoic against the smoke of gunpowder. You see the Royal Navy. Those wooden walls of England, dominating the oceans with oak and iron. You see a narrative of conquest by courage. You see a story of a small island that punched above its weight through sheer grit, industrial might, and the thunder of cannons. It is a romantic image. It is a heroic image. It is also a lie. Or perhaps more accurately, it is the mask. It is the theatrical performance put on to distract the audience, while the real work was being done backstage in the shadows. Because deep down, in the pit of your stomach, you feel a different truth gnawing at you, don't you? You feel a dissonance between the history you were sold and the reality you are living. If the empire was built on ships and soldiers, why does it feel like you are still conquered today? Long after the ships have rusted and the soldiers have gone home, you feel a force in your life right now that is quieter, colder, and infinitely more controlling than any standing army could ever be. You wake up every morning and you feel the weight of it. It's not the weight of chains around your ankles. Those would be too obvious. Those would incite a rebellion. No. The chains you feel are invisible. They are woven into the very fabric of your existence. You feel it when you look at your bank account and see your labor evaporating into a system you do not understand. You feel it in the panic that rises when you realize that no matter how hard you work, the finish line keeps moving further away. You feel it in the crushing realization that you do not own your home, the bank owns it. You do not own your car, the lender owns it. You do not even own your country's future, the bond market owns it. This is not a political failure. This is not bad luck. This is design. You are suffering from a slow suffocation. It is a silent theft that happens every second of every day, ticking away in the background like a bomb that never explodes, but simply drains the oxygen from the room. You are wondering why. In an age of unprecedented technology and abundance, you feel more like a serf than a citizen. You are wondering why the free world feels so incredibly expensive to live in. Here is the terrifying answer. The empire never ended. It simply changed its clothes. It realized that occupying land is expensive, messy, and dangerous. Why spend money on bullets to control a population when you can get them to voluntarily shackle themselves with debt? Why occupy a country with troops when you can occupy its central bank with a ledger? The British Empire did not die in the 20th century. It didn't collapse under the weight of decolonization. It molted. It shed its physical skin, the flags, the governors, the garrisons, and it ascended into the pure, ethereal form of finance. It moved from the battlefield to the balance sheet. It moved from the open seas to the fiber optic cables of the City of London. What you are feeling right now, the inflation eating your savings, the housing market that treats you like a tenant on your own planet, the taxes that pay for interest on debts you never agreed to. This is not modern economics. This is imperialism refined. It is the final perfection of a system that views you not as a human being with a soul, but as a biological asset with a yield. You are a line item on a spreadsheet that was opened 300 years ago. The pain you feel is the result of a butterfly effect that started centuries before you were born. A decision was made to shift the foundation of power from brute force to dark money, from the sword to the ledger. And because you do not see the sword at your throat, you believe you are free. But look closely at the invisible threads pulling your limbs. Look at the debt that dictates your choices. Look at the currency that loses value while you sleep. You are walking through a graveyard of sovereignty. But the tombstones are marked with dollar signs and interest rates. The empire is still here. It is all around you. It is in your wallet. It is in your mortgage. It is in the silence of your own anxiety. We are about to peel back the curtain on the greatest magic trick in human history. We are going to trace the bloodline of this invisible monster. We are going to stop looking at the map and start looking at the money, because the redcoats aren't coming to get you. They are already here. You have been told that history is written by the victors. This is true. But what they don't tell you is that the victors are not the ones with the sharpest swords. The victors are the ones with the deepest pockets. To understand the trap you are in today, we must leave the present moment. We must travel back through the fog of time, past the world wars, past the Industrial Revolution, to the precise moment the virus was released into the bloodstream of humanity. The date is July 27, 1694. The location is a dimly lit Mercer's Hall in London. The atmosphere is one of desperation. King William III is broke. He is fighting a war against France, the superpower of the age, and his coffers are empty. His soldiers are hungry. His ships are rotting. By all conventional laws of history, Britain is finished. It is a small, damp island about to be crushed by the continental giants. But on this day, a deal is struck that will change the physics of power forever. A group of wealthy merchants approaches the king with a proposition. They say, "Your Majesty, we will not lend you the gold you need. Instead, we will lend you the right to print money based on the gold we hold." In that handshake, the Bank of England was born. And in that moment, the British Empire truly began, not as a kingdom of land, but as an empire of debt. You must understand the magnitude of this shift. Before 1694, the world operated on the laws of physics. Look at the Spanish Empire. They were the titans of the 16th century. They had the conquistadors. They had the largest fleet the world had ever seen. They looted an entire continent, stripping the Americas of mountains of silver and gold. But Spain was trapped by reality. To fight a war, they needed physical coins. If the ship sank, the money was gone. If the mines ran dry, the army deserted. Spain was limited by what they could touch. France was the same. The Sun King, Louis XIV, was the most powerful man on earth. But he was chained to the harvest and the tax collector. His power was finite. Britain decided to cheat. They realized that gold is heavy, but belief is weightless. By creating a central bank, Britain detached its military power from its physical wealth. They invented a system where they could spend money they did not have, based on the promise that they would pay it back in a future that had not yet happened. They monetized time. While France and Spain were counting coins, Britain was printing imagination. This was the mutation. This was the moment the tumor began to grow. Suddenly, the British Navy could build ships on credit. They could hire mercenaries on credit. They could fund wars for decades without ever seeing a single gold coin change hands. The French looked across the channel in horror. They could not understand how this tiny island could keep fighting. They were fighting a ghost that could regenerate its limbs instantly. But this power came with a terrible price. A price we are still paying today. The invention of national debt meant that, for the first time in history, the government was not beholden to the people. It was beholden to the bankers. The tax revenue of the British citizen was no longer for the kingdom. It was pledged as interest payments to the men in the shadows who owned the debt. The lineage of this dark money didn't stop in London. It metastasized. It needed a vehicle to travel the world. Enter the British East India Company. You think Amazon or Google are powerful monopolies. They are children playing in a sandbox compared to the company. The East India Company was not a government. It was a corporation. But it had its own army, its own navy, and thanks to the new banking system, it had an infinite line of credit. This is where the butterfly effect turns into a tsunami. The company didn't just trade spices. They weaponized the debt system they learned in London. They went into India, into China, into the Caribbean. They didn't just conquer with gunpowder, they conquered with contracts. They seduced local rulers with easy money, trapped them in debt, and then when the rulers couldn't pay, they seized their lands as collateral. Does that sound familiar? Does that sound like the International Monetary Fund today? Does that sound like the predatory loans offered to developing nations in the 21st century? It should. Because it is the exact same mechanism. The DNA has not changed, only the acronyms have. The seed planted in 1694 grew into a monstrous vine that strangled the world. It taught the elites a lesson they never forgot. You don't need to own the slaves if you own the money, if you control the ledger. The entire nation works for you, and they will even thank you for the privilege. By the 19th century, this system was perfected. The Pax Britannica, the British peace, was a fraud. It wasn't peace. It was a global extraction engine. The gold of the world flowed into the city of London, not because of free trade, but because the city controlled the flow of credit. The ripples of that splash in 1694 are now waves crashing against your front door. Every time you hear about national debt hitting a new record, every time you see a war that seems to go on forever, funded by money that doesn't exist, every time you wonder why the banks get bailed out while the people get sold out, you are looking at the direct descendants of that deal in Mercer's Hall. The fuse was lit 300 years ago. It burned through the American Revolution. It burned through the Opium Wars. It burned through the Great Depression. And now, the flame has reached the powder keg of the modern era. The monster that was born in the dark has grown too big to hide. The British Empire didn't build a civilization. It built a casino. And for 3 centuries, the house has always won. But here is the question that should haunt you. What happens when the house runs out of chips? To understand the present, you must stop listening to the politicians screaming on your television screen. They are merely actors. They are reading lines from a script they did not write, performing on a stage they do not own. If you truly want to understand why the world looks the way it does, why the rich get richer, why the poor get poorer, and why nations rise and fall with the rhythm of a stock ticker, you must listen to the architects. You must listen to the men who built the theater. There is a wisdom that has been passed down through the bloodlines of the financial elite. It is a cold wisdom. It is a cynical wisdom, but it is the most powerful truth ever uttered in the history of statecraft. It brings us to the patriarch of the greatest banking dynasty the world has ever known, Mayor Amschel Rothschild. From the shadows of his counting house in Frankfurt, watching the chaos of European wars and the rise of the British debt machine, he is attributed to have said a single sentence that explains everything. One sentence that renders every history book, every election, and every constitution irrelevant. Listen closely. Let these words sink into your marrow. Permit me to issue and control the money of a nation. And I care not who makes its laws. Stop. Rewind that in your mind. I care not who makes its laws. Do you realize the terrifying magnitude of that statement? It is an open declaration that democracy is a charade. It is a confession that the rule of law is a fairy tale we tell children to make them feel safe. Rothschild and the financial empire that followed his philosophy understood a fundamental mechanic of human society that the common man ignores. They understood that money is not just a medium of exchange. Money is the blood of the body politic. You can have the best brain, the government, the strongest muscles, the military, and the clearest eyes, the press. But if you cut off the blood supply, the brain dies, the muscles atrophy, and the eyes go blind. The one who controls the blood controls the life. Let's dissect this timeless wisdom to understand how it enslaved the British Empire and subsequently the world. First, consider the word issue. To issue money is to be God. It is to create value out of nothing. When a king wanted to build a palace, he had to tax his peasants. He had to take something that already existed. But when a central bank issues credit, they are mining the future. They are creating purchasing power today by stealing it from tomorrow. This power is greater than any divine right of kings. Second, consider the word control. To control the flow is to decide who lives and who dies. If the city of London decided to tighten the credit supply in the 19th century, businesses in Manchester would collapse. Workers in Liverpool would starve, and colonies in Africa would desperate for loans. If they loosened the supply, bubbles would form and fortunes would be made. They were not just bankers, they were the weather makers. They controlled the economic climate in which everyone else had to survive. And finally, the most chilling part, I care not who makes its laws. Why would he care? Laws are just words on paper. Laws can be changed. Laws can be bypassed. And most importantly, laws are written by politicians. And politicians need money. To run a campaign, you need money. To fight a war, you need money. To keep the populace happy with social programs, you need money. Therefore, the lawmaker is always the servant of the moneymaker. This is the secret that the British Empire perfected. The Prime Minister, the Parliament, the monarchy, they became the Public Relations Department for the Treasury, while the British people were debating taxes, rights and votes, the real decisions, the decisions about war, peace, and value were being made in private boardrooms where no votes were ever cast. This wisdom is timeless because it is based on the unchangeable flaw of human nature, dependency. Once a nation becomes dependent on debt to function, it loses its sovereignty. It doesn't matter if you are a monarchy, a republic, or a dictatorship. If you do not control your own currency, you are merely a tenant in your own country. Look at history through this lens, and the confusion vanishes. Why did Britain fight the Opium Wars? Was it for the glory of the Queen? No. It was because the trade imbalance with China threatened the silver reserves of the banking elite. The law said drug dealing was illegal. The money said it was necessary. The money won. Why did the empire expand into places with no strategic value? Because the debt machine required constant growth to prevent collapse. The beast had to be fed. This philosophy is the skeleton key that unlocks the door to reality. It tells you that there are two governments. There is the visible government, the one you see on the news, the one that argues about culture wars and scandals. This is the distraction. This is the puppet show. And then there is the invisible government, the network of central banks, treasury departments and bond markets, the ones who meet in Basel, in Davos, in the city of London. They do not argue. They do not campaign. They simply adjust the dials of the global economy. Voltaire once said, "Paper money eventually returns to its intrinsic value Zero. Rothschild might have replied, yes, but until it does, I will own everything. This is the cold, hard wisdom that has governed the world for 300 years. They built a cage so transparent that you cannot even see the bars. They gave you the vote, but they kept the checkbook. And as we stand here today, looking at the crumbling facade of the modern economy, you have to ask yourself, if the laws are made by the people, but the money is owned by the bank, who is really in charge? The answer is staring you in the face. The echoing laughter of history is getting louder. The empire of dark money didn't just survive the past, it designed the present. And unless you understand this quote, you will never understand the future that is rushing towards you. You. Yes, I am talking to you. You might be tempted to think that this story is just an intellectual exercise. You might be sitting there, thinking that the Bank of England in 1694, or the Rothschilds in the 19th century, are just dusty chapters in a book that has nothing to do with your Monday morning commute. You might think, I am free. I live in a democracy. I am not a colonial subject. Are you sure? I want you to pause the noise in your head and look at the reality of your existence right now. Not the life you present on social media, not the life you wish you had, but the mathematical reality of your daily survival. Let's trace the flow of your energy. You wake up, you go to work, you trade the most precious, non-renewable resource you have, your time, in exchange for currency. But where does that currency go? Before it even touches your hands, the state takes its cut to pay the interest on the national debt, a debt you never signed for. A debt that was incurred by the invisible government we just discussed. Then you pay your mortgage, or your rent. And what is a mortgage? The word itself comes from the old French mortgage. It literally means death pledge. You are pledging your future labor for 30 years to a bank that created the money for your loan out of thin air. They didn't lend you their savings. They typed numbers into a computer, created a liability for you and an asset for them. You are working to pay back a loan that cost them nothing to issue, but costs you your life to service. Look at your credit cards. Look at your student loans. Look at the financing on your car. Who owns you? The British Empire didn't disappear. It just stopped using flags. It realized that planting a flag on a piece of land is messy. It provokes rebellion. It requires soldiers. It is far more efficient to colonize a human being's future. Today, the empire doesn't need to conquer India or Africa to extract resources. They have conquered Main Street. They have conquered you. You are the modern colony. Your labor is the raw material. Your debt is the extraction mechanism. And the city of London, that web of offshore banking and dark money, is still the refinery where the wealth is processed. I want to ask you a question that might hurt. Do you feel like an owner, or do you feel like a tenant in your own life? Look around your neighborhood. I want you to really see it. 20 years ago, maybe there were local businesses, a butcher, a baker, a hardware store owned by a family whose name you knew. That was capitalism. That was local wealth circulating in a community. What do you see now? You see the for lease signs. You see the boarded up windows. And in their place, what has risen? Giant corporate chains, franchise outlets, faceless conglomerates. These are not local businesses. They are extraction vacuums. The money you spend there doesn't stay in your town. It doesn't build a park or fix a pothole. It is sucked up instantly, digitally, and sent to a holding company in Delaware, then to a tax haven in the Cayman Islands, and finally, it settles in the ledgers of the global banking elite. Your town is being strip-mined of its wealth. Just like the East India Company strip-mined Bengal in the 1700s, the mechanism is identical. Only the speed has changed. This is why you feel the squeeze. This is why, no matter how hard you work, the cost of living always rises faster than your wages. It is not an accident. It is the feature of the system. The inflation you see at the grocery store, that is the empire taxing you without passing a law. The housing prices that make it impossible for your children to buy a home, that is the empire turning shelter into a speculative asset for hedge funds. You are living in a neo-feudalism. You are a serf with a smartphone. You have the illusion of choice, Coke or Pepsi, iPhone or Android, Republican or Democrat, but you have no choice in the structure of the game itself. The house always wins because the house owns the currency. Now, I want to break the silence. I want to prove that this isn't just my theory, it is your reality. I want you to go to the comments section below right now. Don't tell me what you think. Tell me what you see. Look at your own town. Look at your own city. What are the cracks in the facade that you are seeing on the ground level? Are small businesses vanishing? Are you seeing your friends drowning in debt just to maintain a basic standard of living? Are you seeing luxury, condos rising while the homeless population explodes? The news will never show you this. The news is paid to keep the growth narrative alive. The news is part of the visible government. But you are the witness. You are the boots on the ground. Tell me below, what does the decline of the empire look like from your front window? Because if we don't start naming the problem, we will never be able to break the chains. The first step to escaping the prison is realizing that you are in one. So look at your wallet, look at your town, and tell me, is this freedom? Or is this just a longer chain? Write it down. Let the world read the testimony of the colonized. Because once you see the bars, you can never unsee them. And that is exactly what the empire fears most. They fear your awakening. And now, we arrive at the convergence. We have traced the lineage from the founding of the Bank of England in 1694. We have listened to the whispers of the Rothschilds. We have felt the chains of debt tightening around your own neck in the present day. But you are asking the most important question, why now? Why does it feel like the world is unraveling today? Why are the cracks turning into canyons right now? To understand this, you must understand the greatest secret of the British Empire, a secret that is hidden in plain sight, yet invisible to 99% of the population. We are taught that the British Empire collapsed after World War II. We are taught that Britain retreated, humbled, to its little island, becoming just another European nation with good tea and bad weather. This is the great illusion. The empire did not die. It did not collapse. It ascended. It shed the heavy, expensive skin of colonial administration, the burden of managing India, the cost of policing Africa, and it retreated into a fortress that no army can breach. It retreated into the city of London. I am not talking about London, the capital of the UK. I am talking about the city, the square mile, the ancient sovereign state contained within London. Did you know that the city of London is technically not part of the United Kingdom? It has its own Lord Mayor. It has its own police force. It has its own laws. Even the King of England must ask for permission to enter. It is the Vatican of finance, a state within a state. When the physical empire fell, the elites moved their operation here. They built a second empire, an empire not of land, but of offshore capital. They created the Eurodollar system, a web of dark money that exists outside the jurisdiction of any nation, outside the control of the U.S. Federal Reserve, outside the reach of any tax collector. For decades, this invisible network has been the operating system of the world. It allowed the elite to siphon the wealth of nations, hide it in tax havens from the Cayman Islands to Jersey, and filter it back through the city of London. It was the perfect crime. A global extraction machine with no fingerprints. But here is the climax. Here is why the sky is darkening. This system relies on one fundamental law, infinite growth, to keep the debt-based money system alive. You must constantly create more debt. You must constantly find new markets to exploit, new populations to leverage, new resources to financialize. It is a shark that must keep swimming or it dies. But look at the world today. The map is full. There are no more new worlds to discover. There are no more continents to colonize. The populations of the West are aging. The productivity of the East is plateauing. The parasite has grown larger than the host. The mathematics of 1694 have finally hit the wall of reality. You see, compound interest is a beautiful servant, but a terrible master. For 300 years, the curve of debt was manageable. It rose slowly, like a gentle hill. But that is the nature of exponential functions. Eventually, the curve goes vertical. We are at the vertical part of the curve. The debt required to keep the illusion alive is now growing faster than the economy can ever hope to repay. The interest payments alone are consuming the entire tax revenue of nations. This is the event horizon. The dark money empire is facing a liquidity crisis of biblical proportions. There is not enough real collateral left in the world to back the mountains of paper promises they have printed. And this is why you are seeing the chaos around you. The wars you see on the news, they are not just about borders or ideology. They are desperate attempts to secure real assets, oil, gas, gold, rare earth minerals, to prop up a dying paper system. The green transition, the Great Reset. Look closer. These are not environmental policies. They are economic demolitions. They are attempts to engineer a controlled collapse of the standard of living to reduce demand. Because the system can no longer afford to let you live like a middle-class citizen. The empire is cannibalizing itself. The hyperinflation you fear is the sound of the engine overheating. The deflationary crash you dread is the sound of the engine seizing. They are trapped. If they print more money to save the banks, they destroy the currency, hyperinflation. If they stop printing to save the currency, they destroy the economy, depression. There is no door number 3. The decision made in 1694 was a deal with the devil, power today for chaos tomorrow. Tomorrow has arrived. The British Empire of dark money is like a star that has run out of fuel. It is currently expanding into a red giant, consuming everything in its path, destroying the middle class. Burning through savings, before it inevitably collapses into a black hole. The mechanisms of control, the bond market. The interest rates, the credit scores are failing. People are losing faith. And faith is the only thing that holds a fiat currency together. When the world realizes that the emperor has no clothes, that the debts can never be paid, that the paper in their wallet is just a claim on a bankrupt estate, the collapse will be instantaneous. It won't happen over decades. It will happen overnight. The ATMs will stop. The supply chains will freeze. The illusion of wealth will evaporate, leaving only what is real. This is not a recession. This is not a downturn. This is the mathematical end of an era. The lineage that began with a quill pen in the 17th century is ending with a digital crash in the 21st. The ghost of the empire is shrieking because it knows its time is up. Everything you are seeing, the political polarization, the social unrest, the frantic printing of money, these are the death throes of a 300-year-old beast. It is flailing. It is dangerous. It will try to take you down with it. But it is dying. And as the dust settles, the only thing that will matter is what you hold in your hands, what you hold in your head, and who stands beside you. The curtain is falling on the theater of the City of London. The audience is waking up, and the actors are terrified. The cycle is complete. The sun never sets on the British Empire, because the sun never sets on compound interest. But eventually, even the sun must burn out. We have walked a long road together in this series. We have looked into the abyss of history. We have seen how a handshake in 1694 mutated into a global system of control. We have seen how the invisible government of the City of London turned nations into debtors and citizens into serfs. I know how you are feeling right now. I feel it too. It is a mixture of anger and terror. When you realize the game is rigged, your first instinct is to flip the board. When you realize the ship is sinking, your first instinct is to panic. Do not panic. Panic is what they want. Panic makes you predictable. Panic makes you beg for a savior. And history tells us that whenever the masses beg for a savior, the empire simply puts on a new mask and tightens the chains. Instead of panic, I offer you perspective. What we are witnessing, the inflation, the corruption, the collapse of institutional trust is not a tragedy. It is a cycle. It is as natural as the turning of the seasons. Empires are like living organisms. They are born in stoicism. They grow through aggression. They mature into complexity. And they die in decadence and death. We are simply living in the winter of this cycle. You do not scream at the winter. You do not try to vote against the winter. You prepare for it. History punishes the blind, but it rewards the prepared. The collapse of the debt empire is a disaster for the parasite, but it is a massive opportunity for the host, if the host is awake. So, how do you prepare for the death of a 300-year-old financial system? First, you must perform a psychological exorcism. You must realize that currency is not wealth. The pound, the dollar, the euro, these are not wealth. These are the empire's scorecards. They are paper promises issued by bankrupt institutions. As long as you measure your worth in their currency, you are trapped in their matrix. Wealth is what remains when the currency goes to zero. Wealth is land. Wealth is gold and silver, the only money that has survived every empire for 5,000 years because it cannot be printed by a politician. Wealth is a fertile garden. Wealth is a clean water source. You must begin the process of converting their paper illusions into hard reality. You must become your own central bank. When you hold physical gold or silver, you are not investing, you are opting out. You are holding a piece of sovereignty that no banker in London can erase with a keystroke. Second, you must invest in the only asset that cannot be taxed, confiscated, or devalued, your mind. In a world of easy credit, incompetence was subsidized. You could be useless and still survive because the system was awash in money. Those days are over. The coming era will be ruthless to the incompetent. It will demand value. Learn a skill that cannot be automated. Learn how to build, how to repair, how to grow, how to heal. Become dangerous. Become indispensable. When the complex supply chains of the global empire fracture, the man who knows how to fix a generator is worth more than a man with a PhD in economics. Third, and perhaps most importantly, you must build your tribe. The British Empire thrived on divide and conquer. They kept us fighting each other, left versus right, black versus white, old versus young, so we wouldn't look up and see who was robbing us. The antidote to divide and conquer is unite and build. Look at your neighbors. Stop seeing them as strangers. Start seeing them as potential allies. Who in your circle can you trust? Who has skills you lack? A lone wolf dies in the winter, but the pack survives. Community is the ultimate insurance policy. When the ATM stops working, your credit score won't matter. What will matter is, does your neighbor like you? This is the Stoic path. We do not wish for the destruction of the system, but we do not fear it either. We accept that the bill for 1694 has finally come due. The dark money regime is ending. It is collapsing under the weight of its own mathematical impossibility. This will be a time of chaos, yes, but it will also be a time of truth. For the first time in centuries, the fog is lifting. The manipulation is being exposed. The invisible hand is becoming visible. You have a choice to make today. You can continue to sleepwalk, hoping the government will save you, hoping the debt will vanish, hoping the empire has one last trick up its sleeve. Or you can accept the responsibility of freedom. Freedom is scary. Freedom means you own your own risk. Freedom means you are not a dependent. But freedom is the only dignity a human being has. The era of the East India Company model, where a few men in a boardroom own the world, is dying. What comes next is up to us. Do not let them reset the board and start the game again. Do not let them usher in a digital currency that is just a digital version of the same old chains. Wake up. Stand up. Own what is real. The ledger of history is closing on the British Empire of debt. The final transaction is being processed. Make sure that when the books are balanced, you are not listed as a liability. Make sure you are listed as a sovereign. The storm is here, but for those who are prepared, the storm is just the prelude to the dawn. I'll leave you with this final thought. They printed the money. They bought the world. They wrote the laws. But they forgot one thing. They forgot that we are the ones who keep the lights on. And now, we are watching.